You are doing it right now, 20,000 times a day, every single day without thinking about it once. And it is directly affecting your belly fat. Not food, not exercise, not sleep. The way you breathe. Here is the part that genuinely surprised me when I first came across the research. When your body burns fat, the fat does not disappear into your bloodstream or get converted to heat or sweat out through your skin. It leaves your body through your lungs. A study from the University of New South Wales calculated the exact fate of every fat molecule your body metabolizes. 84% of it exits as carbon dioxide when you exhale. The remaining 16% leaves as water through sweat and urine. Fat literally breathes out of you, which means how efficiently you breathe, whether your lungs are exchanging gas properly, whether your cells are getting the oxygen they need to oxidize fat, is not a side note in the fat-burning conversation. It is the mechanism. And most people are doing it wrong in ways that are quietly suppressing fat burning every single day. Not dramatically wrong, subtly wrong, in patterns so automatic they never noticed. 7 of those patterns, 7 habits that either work with your biology or quietly against it. Stay with me because habit number 6 happens while you are unconscious, while you are sleeping. And it may be the single most damaging thing on this list because you cannot correct it in real time. Before we go any further, drop a comment right now. Are you breathing through your nose or your mouth as you watch this? Most people, when they actually check, are surprised by the answer. Before the 7 habits, you need to understand 3 specific ways that breathing pattern shapes fat burning. First, oxygen delivery. Fat oxidation, the actual chemical process of burning stored fat, happens inside your mitochondria. Mitochondria need oxygen to run that process. When oxygen delivery to your cells is compromised by poor breathing mechanics, fat oxidation slows regardless of what else you are doing right. Second, CO2 removal. As fat burns, it produces carbon dioxide as a waste product. If you are not exhaling efficiently, CO2 builds up in your tissues. Elevated CO2 signals your body to slow oxidative metabolism. Fat burning gets a brake signal from your own breath. Third, and most importantly for belly fat specifically, your nervous system state. Your breathing pattern is the fastest and most direct lever you have for switching between sympathetic mode, the stress and fat storage mode, and parasympathetic mode, the rest and fat burning mode. One slow exhale begins shifting that switch. One sharp, shallow breath begins shifting it the other way. 20,000 times a day, your breathing is casting votes for which mode wins. 7 habits determine which side those votes land on. Habit number 1, breathing through your nose. Instead of your mouth during everyday activity. This is the foundation. Everything else on this list becomes more effective when this one is right. Look at naturally lean people in ordinary situations. Sitting at a desk, walking somewhere, having a conversation. Their lips are usually closed. They are breathing through their nose without thinking about it. Most people never notice this because it looks like nothing. But biologically, it is doing several things simultaneously. Your nasal passages filter, warm, and humidify incoming air before it reaches your lungs. That conditioning improves gas exchange efficiency at the alveolar level, the tiny air sacs where oxygen enters your blood and CO2 leaves. But there is something else your nose does that your mouth cannot. When air moves through your nasal passages, it triggers the production of nitric oxide in your sinuses. Nitric oxide dilates blood vessels. It increases oxygen delivery to tissues throughout your body, including fat cells that require oxygen to be oxidized. Your mouth produces none of this. And there is a third mechanism. The slight resistance that nasal breathing creates, compared to the open airway of mouth breathing, increases the time oxygen spends in contact with your lung tissue. Oxygen uptake improves. A study published in the Journal of Applied Physiology found that nasal breathing during exercise produced significantly higher oxygen uptake efficiency at the same exercise intensity compared to mouth breathing. The same effort. More oxygen being used. More fat oxidation as a result. The fix is building awareness before building habit. Right now, close your mouth and breathe through your nose for 30 seconds. Notice if it feels unfamiliar. If it does, you have already identified your starting point. During rest and light activity, keep your mouth closed. When you catch yourself breathing through your mouth, simply close it. No drama, no breathing exercises required. Just close your mouth. Over days, nasal breathing during rest becomes default without any further attention. Habit number 2. Breathing shallow and fast when stressed. You are in a meeting that is going nowhere. Your inbox has 47 unread messages. Someone just sent you something that needs to be handled today. You are not panicking. You are not running. You are just sitting there managing it. But your breathing changed 20 minutes ago and you have no idea. Shorter, higher in your chest, faster than before. Your brain read the situation as a threat before your conscious mind did. It shifted your breathing pattern to match, and that breathing pattern is now talking back to your brain. Shallow, rapid, chest-dominant breathing is a biological signal that something dangerous is happening. Your amygdala cannot distinguish between a real threat and a cortisol spiking inbox. It reads the breathing pattern. It releases more cortisol. Visceral fat has 3 times more cortisol receptors than fat anywhere else in your body. Every cortisol spike from every stressful afternoon is being received most loudly by your belly fat. A study published in Psychosomatic Medicine found that shallow breathing patterns were directly correlated with higher cortisol levels and significantly greater visceral fat accumulation in adults with comparable total body fat percentages. Same amount of fat overall, more of it around the organs. Breathing pattern was a distinguishing variable. The fix is not complicated, but it requires catching the pattern. When stress builds during the day, check your breath before you check your email. One slow, deliberate breath through your nose interrupts the pattern. You do not need to stop what you are doing. You do not need 10 minutes of meditation. One breath, slow in, slow out. That is enough to give your nervous system a different signal. Habit number 3, breathing from your chest instead of your belly. Watch a baby sleeping. Their belly rises and falls with every breath. Their chest barely moves. That is what breathing is supposed to look like. Diaphragmatic breathing, belly breathing. The way every human breathes before stress and modern life teach them to breathe differently. Somewhere in childhood or adolescence, most people learn to hold their stomach in, to appear slimmer, to feel less exposed, to meet some posture expectation. The breathing migrates up into the chest. The diaphragm, the large dome-shaped muscle designed to do most of the work of breathing, gets underused, and the consequences for belly fat are direct. Your diaphragm connects to your vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the primary highway of your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest, digest, and fat-burning side of your biology. Every full diaphragmatic breath stimulates the vagus nerve. Every vagus nerve stimulation sends a signal downward to your organs. Heart rate slows. Cortisol production eases. Digestive function improves. Fat-burning environment strengthens. Chest breathing largely bypasses this mechanism. A study published in Evidence-Based Complementary and Alternative Medicine found that diaphragmatic breathing training significantly reduced cortisol levels and improved cognitive performance and metabolic markers compared to chest breathing patterns. The fix is a 30-second check you can do right now. Place one hand on your chest. Place the other hand on your belly, just below your ribs. Breathe normally. Which hand moves more? If the chest hand rises first and rises higher, you are chest breathing. If the belly hand rises first, you are breathing diaphragmatically. To train the shift, lie on your back with both hands in the same positions. Breathe so that only the belly hand rises on the inhale. Your chest stays still. 5 minutes of this daily for 2 weeks is enough to begin rebuilding the pattern. Habit number 4, holding your breath or breathing erratically during exercise. Most people do not know they do this. You start a set of squats or a plank, and somewhere around repetition 4, the breathing stops. All your focus goes to the movement. Breathing becomes an afterthought. You power through the set, drop the weight, or collapse the plank, and finally exhale a rush of held air. Feels like effort, looks like intensity, but here is what it costs you. Breath holding during exercise creates a sharp increase in intra-abdominal pressure. That pressure spike triggers a stress response. Cortisol rises briefly, but meaningfully. Multiply that across a 45-minute workout, and the cortisol accumulation is real. More cortisol means stronger appetite signals after the session. More cortisol means more fat storage signal running after the workout. The post-exercise fat-burning window, which should be a bonus, gets partially canceled. A study in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research found that synchronized breathing during resistance exercise improved oxygen uptake efficiency and produced a lower cortisol response compared to unsynchronized or breath-holding patterns at the same training loads. Same weights, same reps. Less cortisol from just breathing correctly. The rule is simple. Exhale on exertion. Inhale on release. Push or lift or pull, breathe out. Return or lower or release, breathe in. For cardio, keep breathing through your nose if intensity allows. If intensity is too high for nasal breathing, breathe through your mouth, but keep the rhythm steady. Never hold. Habit number 5. Eating meals in a stressed activated state without a breathing transition. This one is subtle, but the data behind it is not. You close the laptop, grab your lunch, sit down, and start eating, still mentally in the meeting you just left. Still processing the email you are going to have to respond to after. The food is good, the portion is reasonable, but your nervous system is still running in sympathetic mode. And eating in sympathetic mode changes what your body does with that meal. When your stress response is active during eating, cortisol is elevated. Cortisol temporarily increases insulin resistance. The same amount of carbohydrates from your lunch requires more insulin to clear in a stressed state than in a calm state. More insulin means a stronger fat storage signal from the exact same meal. Your digestive enzyme production is also reduced when sympathetic mode is dominant. Nutrient absorption is less complete. Satiety hormones release less effectively. You absorb less from the meal and feel less satisfied by it. A study published in the journal Appetite found that eating in a parasympathetic state produced measurably lower post-meal cortisol and insulin response compared to eating while in a stress-activated state. 5 slow breaths before eating changes that state. Not significantly, not permanently, but enough to shift the hormonal environment around that one meal. 4 seconds in through your nose, 6 seconds out, 5 times, that is 65 seconds. It takes less time than it takes to pour a glass of water. Do it before every main meal, and the cumulative effect across weeks is meaningful. Jennifer works in finance. High pressure, fast-moving, barely any downtime. She started taking 5 slow breaths before each lunch. Not at her desk, at a different table in the break room. Just 5 breaths, then eat. 2 weeks later, she told me her 3 p.m. sugar craving had nearly disappeared. Not from changing what she ate, from changing the hormonal environment the meal created by shifting her nervous system state before she started eating. Habit number 6. Breathing through your mouth while you sleep. This is the one you cannot correct in real time. You are unconscious. Your breathing is happening automatically. If it is going through your mouth, you will not know unless someone tells you or you wake with a dry mouth or a sore throat. But it is costing you your overnight fat burning. Here is exactly what mouth breathing during sleep does to the mechanisms we depend on. Nitric oxide production stops because nitric oxide is only produced in the nasal passages. The improved gas exchange that nasal breathing produces is absent for the entire sleep period. Mouth breathing is strongly associated with upper airway resistance and sleep apnea adjacent dynamics, even in people who do not have a diagnosed sleep disorder. This fragments deep, slow-wave sleep, the phase where growth hormone releases, and mouth breathing triggers a mild but persistent stress response overnight. Cortisol levels stay higher than they should during sleep. Growth hormone and cortisol are antagonists. When one is up, the other is suppressed. A study published in JAMA Internal Medicine found that mouth breathing during sleep was independently associated with worse sleep quality, higher overnight cortisol, and significantly lower growth hormone secretion compared to nasal breathers matched for other variables. Lower growth hormone, less overnight fat burning, every night. The fix has become more mainstream in recent years. Mouth taping, using a small piece of surgical tape or a specialized sleep tape across your lips, gently encourages nasal breathing without forcing it. If you wake up and the tape has come off, it means you needed to breathe through your mouth at some point. Over weeks, as your body adapts to nasal breathing, the tape stays on more consistently. Before you start, address any chronic nasal congestion. Nasal saline rinse before bed clears passages. Sleeping on your side rather than your back reduces the likelihood of airway obstruction. A nasal strip across the bridge of your nose can help if nasal passages collapse during sleep. This is one of the most impactful changes on this entire list, and it works every single night while you are doing nothing. Habit number 7, starting the day without a breathing reset. The cortisol awakening response. In the first 30 minutes after you wake up, cortisol surges to its highest natural point of the entire day. This is supposed to happen. It is your built-in energy mobilizer designed to get you ready for the day. But the environment that surge happens in matters enormously. Most people open their eyes, reach for their phone, and are immediately processing notifications, news, emails, messages. Cortisol finds a stimulated, reactive environment and spikes higher, and stays elevated longer than its natural design intended. That amplified spike sets the hormonal baseline for the entire day. More cortisol through the morning, more fat storage signal running in the background from the first minutes of the day. 10 slow breaths before anything else changes that. 10 breaths. 1 to 2 minutes. Before your phone. Before your feet hit the floor. Before any other input reaches your nervous system. 4 seconds in through your nose. 6 seconds out. Let the cortisol awakening response happen. It is supposed to, but in a calm breathing environment rather than a reactive one. A study published in Frontiers in Human Neuroscience found that 5 minutes of slow breathing immediately after waking significantly reduced the amplitude of the cortisol awakening response and improved fat oxidation markers throughout the subsequent day compared to participants who received no breathing intervention. Lower cortisol awakening response. Better fat oxidation from 2 minutes of breathing before picking up a phone. This does not replace the other morning habits. It comes first. Before the water, before the stretching, before anything else. 10 breaths, eyes still adjusting to the light. Nervous system receiving a signal that today begins in a calm place. Here is everything we covered. Condensed. Habit 1. What lean people do naturally. Nasal breathing during everyday activity produces nitric oxide, improves oxygen uptake, and increases fat oxidation efficiency. Habit 2. The common mistake. Shallow chest breathing during stress directly spikes cortisol and amplifies belly fat storage through the cortisol receptor density in visceral fat. Habit 3. What lean people do naturally. Diaphragmatic breathing stimulates the vagus nerve with every breath, continuously reducing cortisol and strengthening the parasympathetic fat-burning environment. Habit 4. The common mistake. Breath holding or erratic breathing during exercise elevates cortisol, reduces post-workout fat burning, and increases post-exercise appetite. Habit 5. What lean people do naturally. 5 slow breaths before meals shift the nervous system to parasympathetic, reducing the insulin response and cortisol output from the same food. Habit 6. The common mistake. Mouth breathing during sleep suppresses overnight growth hormone secretion and elevates cortisol during the only window when those mechanisms are supposed to be working without interference. Habit 7. What lean people do naturally. 10 slow breaths immediately after waking moderate the cortisol awakening response and establish a fat-burning hormonal baseline for the entire day. Here is what I want you to sit with for a moment. 20,000 breaths today. Every single one of them is either supporting or suppressing your fat burning to some degree. Not dramatically, not noticeably in any single breath. But across 20,000 repetitions every single day, the pattern adds up to something that shows up in your body. You are already breathing. You have no choice about that. The only question is whether you are doing it in a way that works with your biology or unconsciously against it. None of these 7 habits require extra time. None of them require money or equipment or a gym membership. They just require a little attention, consistently, to something your body is already doing 20,000 times a day. Try one thing from this list today. Just one. Come back in a week and tell me whether you noticed a difference. Which of these 7 surprised you most? Drop it in the comments right now. I read every single one. If this changed how you think about something as simple as breathing and its connection to belly fat, subscribe to What Science Reveals. Real science explained clearly every single week. And if you want to see how your morning habits, sleep habits, and stress habits all connect to what we covered today, those videos are linked right here. They work together as one complete system. See you in the next one.